today, so we can all use so much. The
What do you mean? What happened?
Today, our line got cut.
Yours got cut? You didn't pay the bill?
That must be it, yeah. So the Bodenheimers are kind enough to lend us some of their bandwidth.
Okay, I hope they have a good connection.
Mir Tashem.
I hope everyone's well. I see we have our loyal friends, Ruben and Shamlins and Simons and Shaya and Bernie. I loved your response, even though it's without a name, but I could tell it was you. It's written Bernie all over it, and the brands and the Mets. Okay, I'm gonna mute everyone so you can fall asleep and snore loudly without any qualms.
Not us, Rabbi. Not us.
Not I, said the Raven. Okay, whoever it was. I got the wrong stories. But anyway, I want to first of all say hello to everybody, and obviously our world is going into greater chaos by the day. It's hard to imagine that this is chaos. It's anything. The more chaotic it is, the more we realize that it's divinely inspired, and well, I don't know, inspired, but divinely orchestrated. Nothing can happen without Hashem. The more absurd it is, the more evidence it is that there's the Yad Hashem. I'm not sure what it is. And one of the things that obviously it didn't hit home, and we've been lucky with the COVID. Hopefully you'll be lucky with the riots. Poo. We shouldn't have any repercussions, but it's been pretty quiet relative to other cities. And certainly the tensions that exist, which have already been, the story here locally. Also, they had a story with Freddie Gray. And so it certainly could have been a powder keg, and it didn't explode. Let's hope the Abishter still looks kindly on us and saves us from the explosions that have exploded throughout not only the United States, even in the world. There was an item I saw that in the U.S. Embassy, Jews always got to get into the fray. Some 200 people came and protested the United States and George Floyd's death, which is a tragic, no question, in the U.S. Embassy somewhere in Tel Aviv or in Yerushalayim. Like, we always got to catch up. We always got to do it like everybody else. At any rate, may Hashem comfort that family. They certainly don't deserve what happened, and let's hopefully the country calms down and things. But one of the things that so often happens, which almost is inexplicable, is that as soon as something like this happens and someone was killed, racially sensitive crime was done against someone with racial sensitivities, and it explodes. And inevitably, even though this hasn't happened throughout the United States, but in Los Angeles, we follow the news. So graffiti was already written on the shuls, free Palestine, F the Jews, and whatever it is. And it's like, it's hard to believe. Like, how do we get involved? Like, what do we do? What do we do again? Like every time it happens. So just interestingly, that this has been on my mind, and just because I have a lot of friends, and actually my cousin who in LA, Dovi Gluck's father, Howie, he comes on sometimes he's on the Dvar Chizuk, but he always comes to the Daf Yomi, and he's on the West Coast. So we've been talking about it, and it's been very much on my mind. First of all, I have a lot of friends. I lived in LA for many years. So just again, this was like on my mind, what is it? What do we make of it? I mean, why every time something happens and the Jews are blamed? In New York also, they got a bad rap with the COVID business. If you follow the craziness, the politics that goes on, de Blasio and the Jews. At any rate, so just happens to be happenstance. I had some time ago read an article in the Inyan magazine. It's the Idea. It's a great, nice magazine. And one of the people who write an article regularly, very intelligent man, his name is Rabbi Y.Y., not Jacobson, Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, an English chap. And he writes a nice article every so often. And I remember reading an article some time back, and I responded to him. I sent him, I communicated with him. And evidently, I hadn't reached him. And recently, I realized that he wouldn't respond. So I recently reached out, and sure enough, I had the wrong email. I sent it to the magazine. And I contacted him in the magazine, and I was looking for the article that I read. I was trying to remember the article. And lo and behold, this morning, I got it, this article. And it's somewhat relevant to this topic. And so I want to share it with you. It's obviously Min Hashemayim. It's an interesting thing that he said. But before I get to what he said, I want to give the background, why I was interested in the article and what it provoked me. So some time ago, I spoke in a Pirkei Avos shir. I probably said it more than once, but in a Pirkei Avos shir, I'm not going to get to the whole Pirkei Avos. Maybe I'll publish it this week as the Pirkei Avos of the week because it's in Perek Aleph. And I spoke about the Gemara. The Gemara says like this: there's a blessing that was given to the tribe of Yehuda, and the blessing goes. The pasuk goes, "Chachlili einayim, chachlili einayim miyayin." You will be red-eyed from wine. V'leven shinayim michalav, and your teeth will become white from milk. Which, in the simple pshat, sounds like it's talking about the bounty of grapes that will grow in the region of Yehuda, and the healthy cows that will give off very good milk that will give them calcium for the teeth and have pearly white teeth, and some sort of indication of some great abundance of success and robust health as a result of great bounty in their crops. But the Gemara says, but what's the pshuta shemikra? Like, what's the message for us? So we need to know that Yaakov blessed them with red grapes and Elsie the cow. Like, what's really going on? So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, no, there's actually a more significant message in the pasuk. It's couched in those words talking about the bounty, but it really means like this. It says, Chachlili einayim miyayin. And it goes like this. The word Chachlili, the Gemara says, is a reference like that. I'm going to read the Gemara and I'll explain to you, then I'll tell you Rashi Pshat, then I want to tell you where I'm going with this. So it says like this. The Klal Yisrael says to it's really a tefillah. And the tefillah is to God. It says, Rabbi Shalom, Ramaiz be'einecha, show me a hint with your eyes. Debasim michamra, a hint from your eyes, a smile, a squint, a little glint in your eye that you show that you're paying attention and you're turning your attention to me is more sweet than the sweetest of wine. Chachlili einayim, and is a reference to smile. How does chachlili? Chachlili means red normally. So Rashi says no. The word chachlili breaks down into it's a contraction of the sentiment chach choich in chiyuch in Hebrew. A chiyuch is a smile. It's a smile. Chiyuch. 10 chiyuch. There should be these little posters. 10 chiyuch with a smiley. 10 chiyuch. Chiyuch is a smile. So basically, the word chachlili is really telling that we're turning to God and we're saying, God, smile upon me. Smile upon me. Chiyuch li to me. Make me feel. Because when I get that encouragement by seeing you smile at me, then that encouragement, that sense of satisfaction, knowing that God is smiling his countenance upon me and showing his consent and his validation and his concern and his care and his love, there's nothing more precious than that. We know that that's true to other people, to children, to whoever we're in with. We mimic that also, but it's a midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this was my theory was that God smiles. There's a midah. We think, we talk about all the midas of Hashem. He's a Chanun, he's a Rachum, he's a Chesed, Nake, all the different Yud-Gimel midas of Harachman that we say. But there's another midah, another attribute. One of his attributes is not only that he's a Rachman, but he smiles. And smiles means that Hashem smiles his countenance upon us. And that's what we ask, Hashem should smile on us. So the big question is, how do we know whether God's smiling? I mean, when's the last time first of all, where did you see a smile from the heavens? Like, how do you know if he's smiling? So you say, God smiled upon us. How would you know if God is smiling on you? How would you know? God's smiling on us. So this is where I segue. And this is where, when I read his article, it provoked my thoughts about God smiling. And he says something in the name of Matisyahu Solomon that I want to share, which is a bit scary, actually, and something for us to think about. So I'm going to share to you what he said. So he writes in the article, and the article is called, this Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, he's a great lecturer and author, teacher, he lives in New York, and he speaks all over the world. He's a really very fascinating individual. And if you speak with an English accent, you can read Humpty Dumpty, and you sound like you're intelligent, but he happens to be really intelligent. And he writes the following. He said he bemoans the fact, says, why is it that sometimes we find that certain events happen, this question, and then suddenly it all turns to negativity towards us. Like, how do we read that? What's the message in it? And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes there's an event that takes place, and it creates a certain positiveness towards the Jewish people. And sometimes it goes towards our favorite, it goes against us. How do we understand that? What is that a measure of? Is there a method to that madness? It's just random. It's just part of, the Hashgaras Hashem. Sometimes he makes things. What's going on? So he quotes from Matashel Solomon, an interesting thing, and I'll read it to you exactly. He seems to be translating it from what he read in his sefer called Manas Chaim. He writes as follows. He says, he prefaces it because he was bemoaning the fact, like 9/11. There was something that we should have, everyone should have stood shoulder to shoulder with the victims, and the victims of the terrorists. And nevertheless, sometimes, there are congressmen and other people who turned it against the Jewish people. That's what he's referring to. And like one commentator said, how do we go from "we'll never forget" to suddenly they're turning against us and free to Palestine and all that kind of stuff? That happens so often. Anyway, that's what he was bemoaning. So he quotes now, and he says the answer is captured brilliantly by the great Mashgiach of Lakewood, Rabbi Matthew Solomon, in the Sefer Manas Chaim, Kinyan Torah, page 68. This is what he writes. He says, Yetzias Mitzrayim is the foundation of our certainty in Hashem's control of our lives. In Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's the ultimate. That was where God asserted his mastery of history. And not only he created the world, but he manipulates events to his liking and his direction. And he says, after the 10 Makkos, there was one other huge miracle. Ramat Solomon talks about. What is that? The Jews were told to ask their Egyptian neighbors for their gold and silver. It is astonishing that the Jews, whom the Egyptians abhorred, should suddenly find favor in their eyes. It says they found favor in the eyes and they gave them. This showed that Hashem directs and controls how people see things. And he says like this, Hashem decides how people view history's big events. The Egyptians could have, and in fact should have, viewed the Yidden with hatred because of the Makkos and the devastation of the country. Instead, they smiled and offered sympathy and support. And he says, often the opposite is true too. When the Ummas Ha'olam, the nations of the world, should view the big events what they are, as in the case of 9/11, and stand shoulder to shoulder with all those threatened by a common enemy, they sometimes inexplicably don't. The perpetrators and the supporters start to attract sympathy, and Jews become the enemy. And he says, this is all, of course, a result, and this is his yesod, of the judgment of the Bezin Shalom, the judgment of Hashem. And basically what he's saying is that, there are times when Hashem shows, so to speak, a scowl. How does he show a scowl? And maybe that's what Hestapona means. When things seem to turn, it's not just happenstance. This is part of how Hashem conveys his message to us, his smile or a scowl. So when the nations act a certain way, in a certain positive way, that's a smile. When it's not, that's Hashem's scowl. And he says it's obviously there's some sort of message to us to get our act together so that we should affect that Hashem begins to smile to us. This is what I want to leave you with. It's just something interesting. Like we get frustrated and we say, oh, it's not fair, and how could they do it? They're terrible. But we forget that it's all b'hashgach, it's all ordained by the puppet master in the sky, and everything that happens, and even reactions, as Ramacho pointed out, defies logic. Why would the Egyptians suddenly show favor? Maybe reluctantly they gave it, or they just gave it not with favor, but just like get out of here already and just take it. But it says they did it. The pasuk says no, they were kind. They showed favor. They found favor in the eyes of the Egyptians. So you see that how the world looks at us is really a reflection. This is what Ramat Hashem claims, and that's what he's saying, is whether Hashem is smiling at us or he's scowling at us. So it gives us some pause to think that we always react angrily towards those who show animosity towards us. And of course, those are enemies, and we should be angry at them. But we can't forget the message, that there's a message to us. And maybe the message is that we have to be smile towards others more positively than Hashem will smile towards us. Whatever it is that we have to change in our lives. But this is what I'm sharing with you. This was my exchange. I had this when I read it, it reminded me of what I said about God smiling. I found a source in the Gemara that says God smiles, and he concurs with me. But he does make a point that sometimes the smile is a scowl, and how Hashem, when we talk about Hashem showing his kindness towards us, really we hope that it's a smile. And sometimes the way to determine that, my question, how do we know if it's smiling? How the world looks at us is often a reflection of the smile that Hashem shows on us. And if they don't smile on us, then maybe we still have something to do and to rectify our ways. And certainly one thing's for sure, because the Gemara there continues to talk about Leben Shinayim Yicholo, that when someone shows positiveness towards another person, that's more nourishing to the person than on a 100-degree day, someone gives you a cup of ice cold milk and gives you, the refreshing milk. More nourishing than that imagery is giving someone a smile. I saw a little film recently it's amazing what the power of a smile is, that they showed a mother with a baby, and they told the mother to go straight-faced, to look at the child and just look straight-faced at her. And don't react. Normally mother smile, they say, yeah, cheerful. And you watch the reaction of the child. At first, the child starts to smile to compensate. Then she sees the mother, she gets distracted. And after she gets distracted because she can't accept it, then the baby starts to cry. And they proved, they did this scientifically, that just a smile, instinctively, even a baby, sees a smile. And we know when you smile, it has a powerful effect on your wife, your children, yourself. You look in the mirror and you smile at yourself. You feel better when you look at yourself with a scowl. And certainly when you look at others, so maybe there's a midah connected midah also. Maybe the midah is we want God to smile on us, we also have to smile. To midah, when we emulate Hashem's midah of smiling and showing positiveness and encouragement and care and concern to others and conveying what we call ha'aris panim, then Hashem won't have to be masked upon him and hide it and show us a scowl, and he'll have the world turn to us and hopefully bring the ultimate smile when we go back with big smiles ear to ear, returning to Shalim Yer Kodesh. Okay, so that's my little thoughts for today, little musings and meanderings of mind. And that's it. So that's all I have to say. Anyone like to offer anything for our nice little crowd here? Okay.